The Hagmann Hagmann Report for today. It is Friday. It's December 12th, 2014. How about that? 12/12/2014. I'm Doug Hagmann in studio. Joining me tonight is my son, fellow investigator, fellow researcher, co-host of the Hagmann Hagmann Report, Joe Hagmann, from an undisclosed location. He's still getting fortified, getting restored from his mystery illness. Joe, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing a lot better, heck of a lot better. Glad to be able to talk and be on the show. I literally spent the last 2 days in nothing but my bed, and aside from having the full effects of the flu, I had everything except the upset stomach. So I was down. I was down for a few days. I couldn't eat. I felt bad. I missed the interview with Pastor Begley's show that you did with Heidi,
yes,
which I heard a lot of great things about. I got a lot of good feedback. I didn't get a chance to tell you about that yet, but I got some emails and some calls that people were.
No one went over to the asylum for me. Oh, wow, okay. Well, that's great. Well, great. Well, you know what? I'm glad you're feeling better, and I'm glad we had a chance to talk earlier today. Folks, by the way, the power at the studio here, where we're broadcasting live tonight, is we do have a generator for the studio. However, there's a 7, 8, 10-second delay before the transfer is complete. So in the event that I drop off, Joe is the reason I asked Joe to stand by tonight is because we were without power, well, several times throughout the day, and just enough where it just knocks everything off. And so he's going to keep things patched together. It's a weather-related issue, I believe. But before starting out, let me just say this. Portions of tonight's broadcast are sponsored by NatureBox. NatureBox ships great-tasting, healthy snacks right to your door. You forget about the vending machine. Forget about the snack aisles and the convenience stores and the grocery stores. Start snacking much smarter with healthy, delicious treats. Boy, you name it, they've got it. It seems like they've got just a wonderful variety of snacks for whatever your taste buds might be desiring. They've got everything from pineapple rings to, my goodness, dark cocoa almonds. It seems like I'm getting on a different kick every NatureBox delivery, and I'm getting to look forward to the NatureBox deliveries. And by the way, so is her studio dog. She's a puppy, and by the way, it's her 5th. She was born 5 months ago today. Happy birthday, Lady Hope. Yeah, the old man's getting soft, I guess. But having said that, where she used to bark at the UPS guy, even at her young age, when she sees the UPS man bringing the NatureBox or bringing any deliveries, because she too is a NatureBox lover, she doesn't bark at the UPS man anymore. Isn't that interesting? Who says? Well, they've got a wonderful sense of anticipation, perhaps. Anyway, folks, support this podcast, by ordering a free NatureBox sampler box at naturebox.com/CFPradio. That's naturebox.com/CFPradio, or simply scroll down to the bottom of our homepage, and click on the NatureBox icon there at the lower left. And also note, too, across the bottom, other important products like Harrys.com, as well as Prepare for Persecution. Folks, that's a must-have book, especially in times in which we live. Just want to welcome the new listeners to our broadcast. Folks, we're gaining new listeners every day. It seems like we're hearing from new listeners. I want to thank you so much for checking in with us. For those new to the program, we broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern. And I want to say, too, we're also simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. There you can tune us in at the HagmannHagmannReport.com. In the event you have trouble with listening to the platform in which you're at right now, which is BTR perhaps, you can always go to the HagmannHagmannReport.com. That's simulcast through the Christians United Broadcasting Network. We want to thank them so much for allowing us to use their airwaves. And thank you for your belief and trust in us. We hope never to squander that, and certainly we attempted to be to give you the information, give you the news behind the news. We look at the news in 3D, and that's kind of our moniker. We do that, and I want to thank you so much for listening and for being part of our program, part of our lives. A lot of news to get into, Joe. I'm going to do the heavy lifting because I know it's not exactly pleasant for you to talk and breathe at the same time, based on your condition. But
no, it's been rather stressful. But one thing I'll say is I feel 100% better than I did 24 hours ago. So that says a lot. But yeah, I'll let you take the lead and chime in when necessary.
Well, yeah, and I know that the past few days I've been kidding somewhat, about your giving you a blankie and a sippy cup, but no, I folks, he was down and out for 2 days, and had it gone another day, I'm sure he would have sought medical treatment at the hospital, because it was just that way. 3 days.
Tuesday I was there doing the show live, but you had to take the lead because I couldn't even hardly function.
Yeah.
I couldn't keep my head up. I couldn't keep my eyes open. That's when the fever started, and it lasted all the way till this afternoon. So you filled in for me not only on our show but Pastor Begley's show as well, and I do appreciate that. It was like when you lost your voice almost, but I just couldn't get out of bed. And then, like I said, it was not only a sickness like the flu, but it was a sickness that made you just so weak. I've never experienced that part. Usually you can get up and move around a little bit. Nothing. I couldn't do that at all. It was a debilitating virus or flu-like symptom.
Well, you're a sickly kind of guy. Of course, that's why we have in the studio the duct tape and the actual the 1x4 framework in the event we need to strap you to the chair or keep you upright. It's a staple here at the Hagmann Hagmann Studios. No, it's. I'm glad you're doing better, and of course, after the weekend, you'll be 100%, and that's fantastic. Now, folks, tonight's program, a very special program, as we promised at the top of the hour. We're going to bring on a very special guest with a very special topic and a very precise topic, and I think you're going to be absolutely blown away what you hear from this guest. Now, I'm not going to tell you who it is, and that's just to keep the integrity of the broadcast going. You just don't know. I mean, this is a very explosive subject that you're going to hear, and the individual that is coming on is a very knowledgeable, very adept researcher, and the topical matter is so critical to what we're going through right now, so appropriate, so right on the money, so informative that I think you're going to learn so much. And I think at the end of the program, and hey, we'll give you your money back if we don't deliver. But I think by the end of the program tonight, I think you're going to find you're going to be blown away by the information that you're going to be privy to, and the work that's gone into this research project, as far as I'm concerned, and I've seen a lot of investigations, is unparalleled. And that's what I'll say. And, of course, that's in preparation for tonight's guest. But having said that, one of the things that's on my mind tonight, and I saw this, and I just I was absolutely astounded, okay? I don't know who this guy Tom Ford is. Folks, have you seen this? Joe, I don't know.
I saw this. Yes. Okay. Tom Ford, I don't know who he is, but the headline from Drudge, Tom Ford introduces penis crucifix necklace.
Yeah, yes.
It doesn't get much more disgusting, derogatory, demeaning than this.
Absolutely.
Christmas shopping dilemma solved, it says under the picture of the headline. Tom Ford, designer, provocateur, made wary fashion journalist in London for the men's show Perk Up to do a double take at what was then called the crucifix / male genitalia necklace by writers. And it goes on to say it was equal parts panned and obscene or inspired, a sly allusion to
don't even try to
charms. But it goes on, it's interesting because what is the symbol we see of the Illuminati and of the elite across the country? These phallic symbols, these monuments.
Is this Tubal Cain?
Yeah.
Think about that.
This is what we're seeing here.
But I want to bring this up, folks, tonight. I really do want to bring this up because, isn't it interesting that the focus of this particular obscenity is not Muhammad, it's not Buddha, it's not it's Jesus Christ, isn't it? I mean, and I'm sure Tom Ford would not even dare to make some sort of allusion to Muhammad in that fashion. Yet this is being done in the interest of creative design. So whoever this Tom Ford is one sick dude. I don't know. TomFord.com is apparently where this can be purchased. Oh man, I'm not going to even go any further. But I think that this alone should tell the American people, the listeners, the state of our nation. Well, I mean, what do you think, Joe? I mean, this is...
I think it should not only talk to the state of our nation, it should talk to the spiritual state of our morality and how bankrupt and decadent we are as a society. And I think it should speak to what the Bible said the attributes of the people of the last days would be. And I think if you put not just this story, but many of the stories together, from the anti-godliness to, being boasters, proud, drunks, idolaters, going through the list, being proud, being mockers of God. We're seeing the whole gamut of everything that was listed back then. So I think we need to take a serious look at what the Bible says these times are and understand that there has been a falling away. And it's been described to me in the best way that to fall away from something means you had to have something in the first place to fall away from. And what we're seeing is a following away from faith, both from the congregations of the churches and from the pastors of the churches. And it's a mutual responsibility that they both hold for not being diligent in their spiritual journey.
Exactly. And I've got really nothing to add to that. Another thing, folks, I don't know whether you caught this or not. U.S. pastor faces crimes against humanity charges for opposing gay agenda. Now, have you heard about this, Joe? Have you seen this? I know you've been down.
No, where is that?
Well, okay, the First Circuit Court of Appeals, they've allowed a lawsuit to proceed against U.S. Pastor Scott Lively, accusing him of crimes against humanity for his overseas activism opposing the homosexual agenda. The plaintiffs are seeking unspecified damages, which are to be determined at trial, and the declaration that he violated, and I'm going to quote this exactly, because you're going to be hearing more about this, the laws of nations by speaking against homosexual rights. Now, in case the name Scott Lively rings a bell, he recently went through this unsuccessful bid to be the governor of Massachusetts. He was sued in 2012, 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, by the Center for Constitutional Rights on behalf of Sexual Minorities Uganda. Okay, so think about this. The Ugandan homosexual activist group, I don't mean to chuckle here, but let's put this in perspective. The Ugandan homosexual activist group claims lively speeches and sermons warning Ugandan leaders not to follow the liberal West lead on homosexuality incited murders, violence, and persecution of homosexuals in that nation. So here's what they're saying. They're saying that because this U.S. pastor had preached in Uganda against homosexual activists and activist groups, and preaching against homosexual activity, period, the homosexual activist groups have said, wait a minute, your preaching incited murders, violence, and persecutions in Uganda. and the lawsuit is seeking redress under the Alien Tort Statute. This is a very controversial law that has occasionally allowed foreign nationals to sue U.S. citizens in American courts for crimes committed overseas, and it doesn't matter whether the law supposedly broken was a U.S. law or a law in the country where the alleged crime was committed.
Do they have to have visited that country?
Well, it's interesting because the way this, and I did some research on the laws of nations. No, I don't believe so. Now, Lively, I'll just continue this, and there is some additional information here. Of course, this pastor asked Judge Michael Posner, Ponzor, to throw the case out, stating that he's got the right to free speech. It's protected by the U.S. Constitution, and nothing that he did or said violated Ugandan law. But there was a 79-page ruling that was done on, and I don't know how we missed this. Perhaps we might not have. Maybe we referenced this, but on August 14th, 2013, there was a 79-page ruling that called Lively's opposition to homosexual behavior ludicrous. The judge blamed Lively's speeches for everything from isolated instances of police brutality against homosexuals in Uganda to the introduction of a controversial bill that would have made homosexual behavior punishable by death. The penalty was later amended to life in prison, but still, the bill failed anyway. But anyway. Lively has expressed support in Uganda and other countries for laws banning pro-homosexual propaganda. Now, this is similar to the law that Russia recently enacted. However, he strongly opposed the harsh penalties that are built into the Ugandan bill. So this lawsuit claims that by sharing his views with influential people in Uganda, this American pastor somehow set off a chain reaction of violence and persecution against homosexuals that continues to this day. And, of course, he appealed to the First Circuit Court, asking them to overrule the initial judge's judgment, the Ponzor's judgment, and dismiss the case. He pointed out that he'd not broken any U.S. or Ugandan laws, and said he could not be held responsible for the actions of an entire foreign society, nor its individual members, just because he made some speeches in 2009. But where it takes a dark turn, and I would bring in everyone's attention to this, but last week a 3-judge panel on the First Circuit denied his request. While they conceded that it's debatable whether this Judge Ponzor had properly parsed the petitioner's protected speech from any unprotected speech and conduct, they said that Lively's right to extraordinary relief is not clear and indisputable. So, here we have, and given the importance of the case to future applications of alien tort law, the judges said they would rather allow it to go forward in order to further explore the issues by Lively and his lawyers. What is that telling the people?
Now, do you have a clarification of alien tort law? Because that sounds familiar to something else I'm looking into. It's just like a or going to be international law once imposed. This alien tort law, is this a precursor to some type of international board of law?
Okay, the alien tort law is actually the Alien Tort Statute. It's 28 U.S.C. 1350. All right, for those people who want to look it up, 28 U.S.C. 1350. It's also called the Alien Tort Claims Act. It's a section within the U.S. Code, well, obviously U.S.C., that reads that the district courts inside the United States have original jurisdiction of any civil action by any alien or by an alien for a tort only committed in violation of the law of nations or a treaty of the United States. And it's only been since 1980 courts have interpreted the statutes to allow foreign citizens to seek remedies in U.S. courts for, and this is important, for human rights violations for conduct committed outside of the United States. I can go into the history here, but it was actually, this goes back to our founding. The Alien Tort Statute was actually part of our initial Judiciary Act of 1789. But again, is it really necessary to get into it? No. I think the current application of it, but here you've got a gentleman saying, who is actually preaching to, or specifically preaching to, the influential class, we'll say, of Uganda, of a foreign nation, and they are saying, well, this has caused essentially murder, and now we can sue you through the American court system, and we've got the judicial system, which, and I said this on Pastor Begley's show. I mean, even at the level of the judiciary, we are a captured operation. We're a captured country, and this is why these judicial posts are so important to pay attention to. Look where this is going. I mean, and by the way, the taxpayers essentially are actually paying for this prosecution. This is an amazing story. This is absolutely an amazing story with conclusions that will. But looking at this, the progressives, the Marxists, the liberals, are pushing the immoral gay agenda in Africa. Also, not only Uganda but Liberia as well. I mean, this is just crazy.
Well, I was thinking along the lines of, what if they wanted some type of criminal action to be held against the people who would go over there and, sterilize them through vaccinations, and how this law would apply to civil or criminal charges to those aspects. We hear the stories in Kenya, or where the UN, goes over there to give a vaccine, yet in the vaccine they sterilize 1 million people in the process.
That's a good point.
I wonder if that gives them any remedy of rectification from that. But the way you're explaining it in this story, it's being used in a completely different capacity.
Well, I think we've been warning. People ask. We occasionally get emails from people saying, "Well, why do you stress why do you focus on the news? Why do you focus on news issues? It's much more important, much more beneficial to focus on, ministering to people." I get that. It's both. However, understanding what we face as a nation, as a people, as a collective, and individually, and understanding what we, as talk show hosts, perhaps could go through, or we, as you folks, listeners, who are sharing the word with others and taking on, or talking about the sin of homosexuality. And I've long since stated,
even abortion.
Yeah, anything. Folks, we're in dangerous waters here. This is absolutely incredible. And the United States is not. I mean, think about this. This is a U.S. judge allowing this to go through, a U.S. District Court judge. And let me just. Okay. Let me just say this. In answer to your question earlier, in 2002 and 2009, this U.S. citizen, this pastor, Lively, was invited to speak before a group of Ugandan pastors. They were concerned about the rise of pornography and homosexuality in their culture. So what he did is he shared with them the history of how the American culture had been brought low by the homosexual activists here in the United States, and warned them unless they took actions to prevent it from happening there, they could expect similar results. So he reportedly drew connections between homosexuality and child sexual abuse, noting that historically, and this is a fact, that most homosexual behavior started started at an early age, especially with the men having sex with adolescent boys, and encourage Ugandans to protect their children from indoctrination or recruitment by gays and lesbians.
Wouldn't want to read your inbox in the morning.
Yeah, well, it's par for the course, and it's interesting too, because mass resistance is a group who's working closely with lively and pro-family issues back in Massachusetts. Said that Brian, Kamaker? Brian Kamaker of Mass Resistance, he made a public statement saying that Judge Posner or Ponzer should recuse himself because of his background, going back years of supporting the homosexual movement and his goals. He provided a link to an investigatory piece that he wrote, which says in part that Ponzer is openly liberal and a protege of the pro-homosexual Judge Joseph Taro, who recently ruled to strike down DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, in the federal court. But that's just his more visible profile. As Kamaker said, that Ponzer's bias favoring the homosexual movement goes back a number of years. At his judicial induction ceremony, when he was inducted as a judge on February 14th of 1994, this judge, this Ponzer, told the crowd, "We have a," quote, "proud, vibrant gay and lesbian community in Western Massachusetts." Now, at that time, think back to 1994, and this is referenced as well in this story, people were remarking that it was a very unusual statement to make, especially for a judge. And I have to agree, especially back, if you consider that time period, that 1994. It seems like just yesterday to me, but no, that's, what is that, 04, 14, 20 years ago, right? So, this is actually... folks, you're gonna have to keep your eye on this one. You can find more information about this at LifeSite News. But again, U.S. pastor faces crimes against humanity charges in this country by Uganda for merely speaking against homosexuals. You don't think that the homosexual activist agenda wants to take down this country from the inside out, man? And you know what, Joe? I get emails from people saying, you shouldn't pick on homosexuals. You shouldn't cite this. Look, folks, understand. We're not talking about. We're talking about an agenda here, an agenda that is too hard to believe. I mean, an agenda that's going to take us down from within.
We're not talking about individual people and what they choose to do. We're talking about an agenda that has money behind it, that's pushing for not the rights of homosexuals as though that's what it seems to be now. They're pushing for the moral, the continuation and the final moral bankruptcy of this of us as humans.
Exactly. Yeah. And even in your, go ahead.
No, if you wanted to switch gears here for a minute, I got a piece of economic news. Brazil and Uruguay move away from the U.S. dollar in trade. Now, Brazil, when reading the title of this article, I wondered, they're already part of the BRICS nation, so I didn't understand what this was a big deal, or why this was a big deal, but you got Uruguay and the BRICS have switched, in Brazil, have switched to setting bilateral trade with local currency to stimulate turnover, bypassing the U.S. dollar. Payments in the Brazilian real and Uruguayan peso started Monday. The agreement was signed November 2nd by the head of Brazilian Central Bank, Alexandre Timbiani, and his Uganda counterpart, Mr. Garana. Both countries believe such a move would strengthen trade across Latin America. The agreement was a result of long negotiations between both countries belonging to Mercosur, the Common Market Index of South American countries, as well as global strategics of BRICS. RIA quotes Carlos Francisco, a professor of international relations at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. It goes on to state that if this new mechanism proves to be successful, it can further be expanded into countries in Latin America, such as Paraguay, Bolivia, and Venezuela. This all is leading up to plans with Vladimir Putin and his leaving of the dollar dictatorship, as he calls it, and starting to use and began their union with China and the yuan for use in trading rather than the dollar. So,
okay.
We're seeing countries continue to move away from the dollar, and as it states here, Vladimir Putin has a plan to leave the dollar dictatorship, which is a term he coined or he's using, of the market, and increasing the use of the ruble and the yuan in trading in China. So these are proxy countries beginning a move away from the dollar through a bigger agenda in joining the Russian and Chinese economic interests and dominations of the upcoming future, which we will see, as they say in this article, by 2025, dollar-free trading.
Dollar-free trading. Well, of course. And this is the move toward the, it's the move toward the...
They also say here a Eurasian Economic Union. Russia, China, Latin American countries are not only the ones interested in ditching the dollar. The Eurasian Economic Union, which also includes Belarus, Kazakhstan,
right,
is continuing to plan a single market for financial services by 2025, which will simply switch to dollar-free trading, as it states there.
Well, it's just a matter of time, folks, before the dollar loses its reserve currency status, which will spell the death, the orchestrated takedown of the U.S. dollar.
And maybe next week, I wanted to do this week, but I wasn't up for the challenge, is come over and go over the laws with you, where I believe I found the Federal Reserve disbanded itself and is reconsolidating under a foreign international agreement starting in 2016. And they're going to do a bank run, which they state they'll do a bank run under the 622 section of the Dodd-Frank Act by claiming that depositors' deposits are liabilities to them, not to the banks, claiming the bank's right to take the money. At the same time, this international consolidation would be a IMF, World Bank / UN one world currency move, and I think it's in law in the Federal Register in writing. I need to go through it with you in further detail because they have the dates in here. They say the Board of Governors has disbanded the Federal Reserve and is reconsolidating it under a foreign international monetary instrument, and it's very detailed, and I think it's very important.
So, why don't you, if you can, go ahead and take a breath, and let's go over that again. Yeah, I'm running them hard, folks, tonight. Say that again, because I think what you're saying
I found a law that's in the Federal Register that was placed there this last November, becoming in effect of June 30th of 2016, where it's a process that starts this December 23rd, that disbands through the Board of Governors the Federal Reserve and reconsolidates the Federal Reserve and the financial institution of the Federal Reserve underneath a foreign international financial institution, or it reconsolidates it under a new, more overarching financial power, which would be that of the IMF or the World Bank or both.
Man, okay. All right. Wow. All right.
I just need the clarification, and I need you to look over the information, look over the laws, and make sure I'm reading this correctly, because I believe it spells it out plainly. I just haven't, since I found it, been able to do the research myself.
Okay, and we can work on this together. And folks, if you're out there and if you have any information about this, feel free to send it via our contact page, and that's at hagmanhagmann.com. That's our home base on the internet. You can just click, you can fill out that form. And by the way, thanks for numerous people. Thank you for checking in with us as well through that, using that form, and those who have asked for bumper stickers. I'm on I think my last or logos from us. I think I'm on my last, I don't know, maybe 50 requests, so they should be going out here before the weekend's over, so thank you for that. I also want to say once again to the Remnant Bible Study Girls in New Albany, Ohio. Joe, you remember those from Columbus? They meet every Wednesday. Lori, Ann, Janie, Paula. We met up.
Yes.
Helen, met them in Columbus.
Yes.
But I want to just say hello to them as well. If you're listening, God bless. All right. Getting back to, but yeah, if anyone who has direct information or has done any research on what Joe's talking about, and I think it's important, if you can fire us off a little bit of data, that would be good if you've already done the research. Because we still are, as Joe said, he's looking into it, and we're going to be looking into it together here probably this weekend. Well, I'll have the wheelchair ambulance come and get you, bring you to the studio. But anyway,
don't pay the big bucks for transportation. I think I can get myself there at this point.
Well, once again on silverdoctors.com, since we're talking about the economy, the headlines, it's official. Finally, the U.S. is no longer the world's number one economy. People might say, well, so what? Okay. Well, look at it. I mean, folks, for the first time in history, for the first time since Grant, I should say, was president. Think about that. We're number two, or we're not number one in the world economy. That goes to China now. And isn't it interesting? I was in and out of the office today, and I was doing just a whole lot of errands. Joe, I heard this, and I just about crashed into a bridge abutment when I heard this. But polls that are ongoing right now, or a recent poll. I think 68% of respondents in a recent poll says that their financial health is better today than it was 4 years ago. What do you think of that?
I think they must have only polled the elite. What world are they? What country are they living in? These people.
I'm just wondering if we polled our audience, because we reach a pretty broad demographic, and I'm wondering exactly, what our audience would say if that would match up. So some of these polls, I think, are perhaps controlling polls, or at least, they want to get people thinking in a direction other than reality. That's what I believe. I don't know.
The one statistic I saw, I think, were 48% of all polls were incorrect or inaccurate, something along those lines.
Yeah, exactly. Heidi, thank you for the email, by the way. Apparently, Rick Wiles interviewed Scott Lively on December 1st. Somehow I missed that. Rick Wiles interviewed Scott Lively on December 1st. Thank you, Heidi, for that. We're going to have to check that out for sure. That goes back to the story about the pastor. So, by the way, Margot says that what you were talking about, the COMEX, excuse me, COMEX effective 12/21/14 is placing a. I was trying to stop a sneeze there. Hey, stop that. Anyway, the COMEX effective 12/21/14 is placing a $400 trade stop on the gold market, meaning that if a $400 swing happens either way, the trade will be halted. Weird timing? Coincidence? Perhaps not. And that's from Margot. Thank you so much. So it seems like this is...
So if gold were to, we'll say, the dollar had a flash crash and gold were to start climbing in value within a couple hour period of time, and it reached a $400 plus or minus, that it would be suspended?
Well, yeah.
At that moment?
And they would stop the trade on the gold and the gold market. In other words, if a swing $400 either way happens, trade's going to be halted. And this, of course, we're talking about the paper gold trading, in the COMEX, which really is not reflective of the physical. And I learned this through people like Steve Quayle and others who deal in this stuff. Okay, obviously the paper market is much different than the physical. In fact, if you go in and attempt to buy physical silver or physical gold, you can still get it. You can go to a coin store, or go to a dealer. but it's based on what I've kind of just been doing my own research with these various locations. I've been asking about gold and silver. Gold, they've got good stock on, but silver, there's a run on the. I don't want to say a run, but there's a decline of inventory of physical silver. I found that rather interesting. I don't know about you, but people are buying and people are holding their physical silver. I thought that was rather interesting. But yeah, bottom line is...
it'd be good to hear that they're holding it, because the whole purpose behind, what I believe, the whole purpose behind this manipulation of the silver market and the gold market is to get people to dump what they have left.
But why would they do
so
that?
That they can have total control.
But why would they do that if it's so low? Because I would suspect that most people purchased their silver when it was in the $25 to $40 range, and now what is it, 17 or something? So why would they liquidate their silver holdings or even gold holdings?
The same reason. Who was it? FDR confiscated the gold from everybody in America at $17, and the next day it goes up to $34. They want people they wanted people to spend their real paper money at a higher market value for the metals, and then they wanted the same people to sell the metals at a much lower paper value, and therefore kind of rehypothecating those metals without, and at the same time doing so, basically doing it at a getting paid in paper currency, being able for them to buy more gold and silver with that money.
Right.
I mean, why do you think all these companies started up saying, send us your jewelry, send us your gold, and we'll send you a check? It's not by accident that all these companies and places are popping up all over the place wanting to buy your gold, buy your jewelry, but yet little is told in reality about people using their retirement or 401k to be able to invest in gold. According to the Federal Reserve, I think you can only pay off your mortgage in gold and silver. The Federal Reserve note is just a check.
Wait a second. Wait a second. I'm not sure I believe you on that, because I can go to the bank right now, and if I had the money, I could pay off my mortgage in fiat.
Right, but literally, I don't think you own that. You know how we had a guest on who talked about your home being securitized by multiple people.
Well, yeah. The actual mortgage itself was sold and resold and resold.
Right.
So when you go to the bank that you got the mortgage from, or the savings loan where you got the mortgage from, to pay it off, they take the money, but they don't have they don't possess the actual paper, the actual mortgage. It was sold, 5, 6, 7, 8 times during the life of your mortgage.
Is what they say is, in their own words, that you can't pay a debt off with a debt, and a debt is a Federal Reserve note. You have to pay it off with some kind of wealth, and the only real wealth is assets like gold or silver or some other type of, financially something that's worth something. And I'll have to find the paperwork and the laws where I read this, but you can't pay a debt. It's like paying a check off with a credit card almost. It just doesn't work out in the mathematics.
No, I get that.
And we're at a disadvantage because we weren't told this, when the Emergency Banking Act happened, laws were changed. This is why they were able to securitize or sell mortgages 10 times over again. This was what led to the derivatives fall. And a lot of economists are right when they say what happened in 2008 is going to be nothing compared to what happens next time when this next bubble bursts, whatever it is. And they're exactly right. It's going to be horrible. And who knows if gold or silver could even save us by having it ourselves. I'm not saying don't buy it. I'm just saying, it might be so bad that it might not save us. It might only be there for those who survive to be able to use if there's some coming back from this.
It would have to be done in an underground, off-the-grid kind of situation, I believe, right? I mean, to me, that's... I do believe that there will. Well, I'll just say this: I suspect there will be a period of time after a fiat currency crash and a global currency reset where gold and silver will have its place in the marketplace for a short period of time without having to be, digitized or worship the mark of the beast or get involved in the system. But,
right. And as far as we can keep going down this hole, and I think the Lord does things for purposeful reasons, and I think He's going to try to get people to move away from a dependence on anything but Him, or try to point them in the right direction. Show them that their gold and silver is worthless if they're depending on it for some type of saving their lives out of the tribulation that is to come, or whether it's food or whatever it is. I think the Lord is these gold manipulation, silver manipulation prices, along with the U.S. dollar fluctuation and the stability of our infrastructure, I think could be a multifaceted thing where it makes people take a second look at what's really important and what can really sustain them in a time of complete disadvantage and need.
Well, things to think about, folks. I mean, that's when you're talking about the precious metals, but I would look at based on my contact based on the information given to me by my contact within the DHS at the time. He said two things. I mean, this Obama regime was actively going to incite racial riots, and what do we see happening? But the second thing is watch for that moment in time for the action to really start when you see a very significant drop in the metals and the precious metals. I don't know if people remember that from my DHS contact. I think it was a year and a half now ago, giving us the alert, and haven't we seen both come to pass? So it's important. I think it's important for people to understand. But with gold and silver, it's more of a canary in a coal mine situation. Yeah.
I don't think we've seen the second half of what was the first part of that warning, which is the lowering of the metals. There was a second part of that I think we're still waiting to see.
Yes, that's true. But anyway, yeah. And what to make more, and I just want to, before we go any further, and I know we're kind of shotgunning the news here, but all of it's important. Folks, if you haven't been at the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.com, or I'm sorry, HagmannandHagmann.com, HagmannandHagmann.com, if you've not been there yet today, please check out the article written by contributor Catherine Crabble. Now, she was a Republican nominee for the 99th District of the Virginia House of Representatives back in 2009. She had a very interesting conversation with a mercenary guy, okay? And the conversation is, she wrote it out and published the conversation to the best of her recollection. Bottom line here, but it's interesting to read. Bottom line here, a $900 million, almost $1 billion, to establish mercenary training camps that that actually surround the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. Folks, it's worth a read, and this is back in 2009. Given the situations, or multiple situations we're seeing right now domestically, this is a piece of the puzzle, I think, that it's worthy of note. Folks, please, HagmannandHagmann.com, the top article by Catherine Crabble, the 900, or I should say the 1 billion, but the title is The Covert $900 Million Mercenary Training Ring Surrounding D.C. It's a little bit disconcerting when you read it, and I know this author. I know that she has, her qualifications or her bona fides are right on the money, and the encounter that she had with a Blackwater mercenary, very interesting indeed. So that's HagmannandHagmann.com on the top there, the top story. I don't know, Joe. I know you didn't have a chance to see that. It was just posted recently, but it's I think it's important, and it fits into the.
No, and I wonder who financed these and what their purpose is.
It's
the Department of Defense and the Army have been releasing a lot of non-lethal and riot combat controls for unruly populations domestically, and I wonder if the mercenaries play a part in the private contracting of militarized police for those police officers and military officers here who won't go along with a martial law type program.
It's almost like you read the article, read the report. Very interesting. Yes. And since we're talking about such things, if you had stumbled upon the End of the American Dream website or even Silver Doctors, oh man, folks, 10 signs that Russia is preparing to fight and win a nuclear war with the United States. Now my question is this, all right? Could this be, now, tough talk / fear-mongering to the extent, and only to the extent, that there's something else at play here, the asymmetrical warfare with the dollar. And in your absence, Joe, we had Rusty, the gentleman who deals in oil commodities, the gentleman in the oil industry, come on and talk about the low oil prices really being an artifact of an asymmetrical warfare, not an artifact, but a tool of the asymmetrical warfare between the United States and Russia. With the ultimate purpose of destroying the U.S. dollar. Could it be perhaps this be a 1-2 punch? I mean, the 10 signs are delineated in the article.
I'd say absolutely, because the United States dollar has to be cleared out of the way in order for an international currency to be introduced, and whether they're going to slowly, incrementally introduce it here in the U.S. in a way that allows people to continue on with their business and everyday life and convenience of that life, or if it's going to be a hard crash for the United States and what the elites would call a survival of the fittest mentality, are those who are left to be part of this new economic order.
Well, exactly. But and staying with the topic here of the potential nuclear showdown, a couple of things that surprised me, folks. I didn't know this, but our nuclear arsenal has drastically changed. And just think about these numbers, because I mean, to me, this is mind blowing. Not that you need a ton of nuclear weapons, a million nuclear weapons. Of course, it's rather redundant. But that aside, back in 1967, the U.S. military, we had more than 31,000 strategic nuclear warheads. Joe, you want to take a stab at how many we have deployed today?
300.
Well, you're not. You're closer to the actual number than the 31,000. 1,642, and that number is scheduled to be reduced to about 1,500. Reducing.
Hey, not to interrupt your thought. I just got a text from Chance. He said that there's a tornado in Los Angeles, California, which is where he's at right now, I don't know if he's in Texas or in L.A., but just to read his text here. So keep those in L.A. in your prayers. National Weather Service confirmed today a tornado touchdown in South Los Angeles during a heavy rainstorm. He says this is crazy, a tornado in Los Angeles. Never thought I'd see that. So apparently that was earlier today. I apologize, but very weird.
Well, still keep him in your prayers. I mean, that's...
He just sent that to me, so...
with that too, and we talked about this again in your absence, Joe, we talked about, I think we briefly talked about this with Stan, but more so in the last couple of days about weather warfare. Are we seeing weather modification? We talked, in fact, on Pastor Paul's show, we were talking about this briefly. The weather wars and weather modification. There's something not right here, whether it's natural or by natural causes or by man-made causes.
No, absolutely. There are storms that are new. You know, we've seen these polar vortexes just kind of appear out of nowhere. The naming of the winter storms, the odd storms such as Katrina and Sandy, who make these almost like guided precision strikes. And, you know, we see that there is weather modification going on. But I wonder to what degree is the Lord not showing his people signs through the weather? Is this weather modification designed to stop some of these storms so people can't see the times that they're living in, versus how much of the weather modification is being used to actually incite these storms? That's something that needs to be researched. And
a little out of the box thinking, I suppose, right? I mean, I get that.
Yeah, but one way or another, the weather's changed, the atmosphere's changed. Stan talks about how the magnetosphere, the sky's changing. The solar maximum has been different than any other solar maximum, according to Stan. The noises that are being reported across the world, the strange, noises seemingly coming from the sky. There's just so much. The Norway spiral. I mean, we could go on and on and talk about the amount of anomalies that have been happening in the atmosphere in the last 5 years.
Precisely. Yeah. Well, my goodness, it's really crazy, and folks are preparing to contact our second and third hour guest shortly. Continuing on with or moving a little bit toward some more economic news, and we mentioned this yesterday. In fact, a couple of callers had talked about this: the potential or the plans to loot pension plans. Congress basically stamps their approval status on institutional theft of funds. It was April 2nd, 2013, in an article called Economics 101, Production, Coercion, and Theft, that Mike Adams, the health ranger, you know him as, I'm sure, wrote about the coming looting of pension plans, stating that when societies approach collapse, coercion shifts to outright theft, stealing money right out of your bank account. For example, we saw that in Cyprus. Government routinely target pension funds, and even private retirement accounts. So there's been a declaration of war against the American worker, basically against the American and Western middle class, because they've got to get rid of the middle class in order to get people subjugated under a global governance. Bottom line here, this is the wholesale theft of pension funds is now underway. Folks, this is just getting very, very crazy. I think everyone, we would be well advised to, if you don't have it, if you don't possess it, if you don't have it in your hands, you don't own it. I mean, I can't for the life of me. I don't have a pension fund. I don't have an IRA. I don't have a 401k. So I don't have those things, and you don't either, Joe. I know that because I know that.
So there's nothing that will leaves me that has any no offshore accounts, no.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
No. You get a bum deal, right? No. Sorry about that. No, nothing hidden anywhere. No, but what's being said here right now is for millions of Americans. Really, we're getting raped, and we're looking at instant financial disaster here domestically. And think about this: if your pension funds were cut off from you, I mean, what then? Where do you go if you got a private retirement account? What do you do when that's no longer available? Well, what more can we possibly say about that except perhaps as a hedge against the system? If I had like a 401k or an IRA, and there was a large tax penalty or for early withdrawal, I would probably take it. I would take it out and say the heck with the penalty, and invest it in something that either in long-term food storage or metals or something, or even weapons, ammunition, whatever, but get it out of and pay off your debts as well. That would be an important thing to do.
Yeah.
Get a mortgage, pay off your debts. So all of this, folks, is a hedge against the coming financial disasters.
Let's do this. Let's call our second hour guest, and then we'll bring her on, and we'll go out, unless you want to take the break. And either way, it's going to come across the studio. We're going to hear the ring. So if you want to do it before or after the break, either way.
Why don't you do this? Why don't we go to a break right now, in fact.
And let him bring on our special guest, who we have with us for the second and third hour. She is connected and ready to go, so you take it away, Dad.
All right. Do I need to prop you up in a special chair and give you a drool cup, or you okay just to hang back for a little bit? Okay.
I'm just going to hang back. You just pretend I'm not here, and if you need me, I will be here, though. All right.
All right. Folks, and I did this on purpose. We did not promote, we did not actually advertise the guests for tonight's program. The reason, of course, is the immense, I don't even know how to describe this, but we want to avoid technical issues. We want to avoid interference, whether it's directly through our sound or by other means. We just want to avoid this. But we have as our special guest tonight an internet researcher who I believe is perhaps one of the hardest working and one of the most credible, most integrity-filled internet researchers that exist, and very adept at what she does, and one of the most thorough researchers. I mean, in fact, I believe she would put a lot of detectives to shame. She goes by the internet alias Butter D Zillion. She's been on this program before, and she's a very good friend of mine. I mean, I would take what she develops from her investigation to the wall. I believe in everything she's done an immense job. She's done the job of three people with respect to the strange death of Loretta Fuddy. Of course, Loretta Fuddy perished reportedly, perhaps, in a small plane crash off of the coast of Hawaii, or the waters surrounding Hawaii, on December 11th, 2013. Very interesting indeed. And Loretta Fuddy, the significance there, she was the gatekeeper and the person that authenticated the long-form birth certificate of Barack Hussein Obama. With that, we've got a lot of things to talk about with that. Butter D Zillion, welcome tonight. Thank you for joining us. And I know you're taking a risk to be out there, but thanks for joining us tonight.
Sure, you're welcome.
Well, we have not talked in a while directly, and that's because of a number of things, but we'll just leave it at that. It's good to talk to you. It's good to talk to you on air.
Yeah,
so we've
likewise.
Got witnesses. And ladies and gentlemen, this is almost the links to which the communications have to be made are just incredible, because I've got to tell you that Butter D Zillion, her computers have been turned to doorstops. It's communications interfered with. I've just never seen anything like it. But having said that, she's been a trooper and continued forward. I'm not sure any introduction is necessary in terms of your background, but I think what we need to do is set the groundwork for what you've been doing with respect to the Loretta Fuddy death investigation or alleged death investigation. Just go ahead and kind of summarize for the audience, at least first, what's been going on. Just kind of give us a recap of what you've done.
Okay. Well, I've been making requests to the people in Hawaii and to the FAA, trying to find out what the whole story is on all of this. And I have recently gotten back responses from the Hawaii people, and I have been directly dealing with the Maui County Police Department. I had initially, and I posted on my blog, the CAD transcript that I had gotten from the Maui County Fire Department, and it stopped. The report stopped at the point that there was one in critical condition in a U.S. Coast Guard helicopter. And to find that out, I had to unmangle. They had cut and pasted, butchered the chronology. But when I put the chronology back in order, I saw that that's where it ended. So I contacted the fire department and asked them if I could get the rest of that, because surely it didn't end with one in critical condition in the Coast Guard helicopter. So I asked for that, and I was told that if I wanted to get that, I would have to go through the Maui County Police Department. So that got me in contact with the Maui County Police Department, and while I was, as long as I was talking to them, I asked them for other records, including the incident report for this incident. And in looking at the responses that they gave me, initially my thought was that there were just more discrepancies. There were discrepancies all over the place. The biggest discrepancy of which is that when I asked them for copies of the sworn witness statements that they were supposed to take to investigate the cause of death and all of that, Chief Faumo told me that they didn't have to take witness statements because the statute that required an investigation was not in effect. And I've posted on my blog, which is at www.butterdzillion.wordpress.com. And if the listeners go there, they can see there right on the front page. They can see I've got two links that lead to documents where I've put the documentation, I've put the statutes, I've put the responses that I got, and all of that to document what I'm saying here. The statute that governs that is HRS 841-3, and I want to read that. But you talk about communication and computer issues and computers being a doorstop. The one computer that I've got that I can use is my husband's right now, and in the last 15 minutes it has just chosen to turn itself off and turn itself back on 5 times. So this is what I'm dealing with. Yes. So I had it open just 2 minutes ago, and so that I could look at those documents and read the relevant portions. But I'm having to pull it up again because it just stopped. So anyway, I'm waiting for this. Yeah, and it's been absolutely crazy. But anyway, okay, this is the HRS 841-3 is the statute that he was talking about, that the chief was talking about. And it says, duties. As soon as any coroner or deputy coroner has notice of the death of any person within the coroner's or deputy coroner's jurisdiction as the result of violence or as the result of any accident or by suicide or suddenly when in apparent health or when unattended by a physician or in prison or in a suspicious or unusual manner or within 24 hours after admission to a hospital or institution, the coroner or deputy coroner shall forthwith inquire into and make a complete investigation of the cause of the death. Okay, so when you look at that, as the result of any accident, suddenly when in apparent health, and when unattended by a physician. Those 3 instances all fit the story of how Loretta Fuddy is claimed to have died. So if she died within Maui County jurisdiction, there goes the computer again. It just turned itself off again. That's
pretty interesting. Real time. Sorry.
Yeah. it's like contractions. They're getting closer together and harder, and it's like there should be a birth here pretty soon. But anyway, so if this happened, if this death happened within Maui County jurisdiction, under where it was as a result of an accident and suddenly went in apparent good health and unattended by a doctor, then they have the responsibility that they need to investigate that, and that's what 841-3. If those conditions are met, then 841-3 is in effect for the county in whose jurisdiction the death occurred. Well, there are just so many discrepancies in the reports that, between the Coast Guard and the Fire Department and the Police Department and the Navy and FAA, and there are just so many discrepancies. So I wasn't sure, well, where did she die? So I looked up the statute, and the statute says that death has occurred when there is the irreversible cessation of pulse and respiration. So when a nurse or a doctor or somebody says that they say that the cessation of pulse and respiration is irreversible, then that is when death has occurred. That they declare that the person is dead. But it says that the time of death is when that cessation first happened. So it may take a long time for them to decide whether the pulse and respiration are irreversibly ceased. But it doesn't matter when they finally decide that it was irreversible. What matters is when the pulse and respiration first stopped, when both of them were first gone. And, of course, if you don't have a pulse, you don't have respiration. So Loretta Fuddy was said by the Coast Guard rescue swimmers to not have had a pulse while she was in the water, floating in her life jacket in the water, off of Kalaupapa. So the place and time of death, according to the story, would be in the water off of Kalaupapa. So then I looked and said, okay, well, who has jurisdiction in the water off of Kalaupapa? And so I looked at the Maui County Charter, and the Maui County Charter says that Maui County consists of the island of Maui and Molokai and Lanai, and I think there are a couple other ones also. But it says that Maui County shall consist of those and the waters adjacent to those islands. Except Maui County does not include Kalawao County, which is the peninsula. There's a peninsula off the north part of Molokai, off of the island, and it's separated from the rest of topside Molokai by high cliffs that are there, and that is where they had decided that Hansen's patients were going to go so that they wouldn't spread the disease to anybody else and all that. And that area, that peninsula, then, is defined in Hawaii statute as Kalawao County. And in the statute that defines Kalawao County, it says that it consists of that part of the island of Molokai that has 3 different little villages there, and known as the Kalaupapa settlement. So the Kalawao County includes the part of the island, just that part of the island, whereas the Maui County Charter says that it includes these various islands and the waters adjacent to it, but it doesn't include the Kalaupapa settlement. So the water, from what I can see, Kalawao County doesn't include any water in their definition of their boundaries, but Maui County does. And so, as long as her pulse stopped while she was in the water, that's Maui County jurisdiction. And Linda Jordan, she has been a great help with a lot of this. She's looked at a lot of my information, and I didn't have time to write things up. And she had her own research that she put in with it too, and has written. But she contacted. We had this question. Well, okay, is it Maui or is it Kalawao? And so she contacted the Hawaii Department of Health, which does the administration for Kalawao County, and she basically asked them, did you do any investigation? Did HRS 841-3 apply to you, so that you did the investigation? And if so, can I get your records and all that? And she got a response back saying, no, it's not us, it's Maui County. Maui County had jurisdiction, and that's why they did the autopsy. And so it was within the jurisdiction. It was within the jurisdiction of Maui County. So then the question comes up: well, why did they say that HRS 841-3 was not in effect then? Because the circumstances in which she died, it was an unattended death. Suddenly, when in apparent good health. What else? The result of an accident. 3 different reasons why that applied. So so that was fulfilled. In the documents that I got from the Maui County Police Department, they have a sheet that was filled out by an EMT, and it said that Loretta Fuddy had been pronounced dead by Dr. Lindsay Harrell at such and so time, and it was marked as that the death was unattended. So they had notification of it. It was within their jurisdiction. If she, if her pulse stopped in the water, as the Coast Guard rescue swimmers claimed. So why would they say that HRS 841-3 was not in effect?
Or was not applicable, depending on how you want to phrase that. But yeah, in other words, okay, so just to be clear, that statute dealt with when someone dies. I mean, that statute would deal with jurisdiction over over an unattended or accidental death, right? Basically,
right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. And what Hawaii's saying is, well, wait a minute, that doesn't apply. Well, why not? Is the question, if she died in the manner in which is being alleged. Is that kind of a good summary? Okay, good. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's the Maui County Police Department is the one. Chief Faumo is the one who is saying, well, there was no death within our jurisdiction.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so folks, did you just hear what Butter D. Zillion said? Through this aggressive FOIA action and research, and really constantly after the people from Hawaii, basically the information returned is, well, there was no unattended death within our jurisdiction. That's the answer. And this is a lengthy pursuit for information, not just a one-time filing, but just a constant back and forth, and playing word games and stuff. And wow, okay, so here we are. That, well, did she die? I mean, based on the information right now that you've got from this, according to the statute, there was no such death that took place on December 11th, 2013, of Loretta Fuddy at this point. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but basically that's where we're at, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much where it's at. And in the documents that I have, also I've got where it's got the request for an autopsy, and my computer is not letting me see this, so I have to see if I can find it in my paper documents here so I can read it. But when they made the request for the autopsy, they said, pursuant to Section 841-14, Now, 841-14, that's different than 841-3. This is what 841-14 says. It says, if in the opinion of the coroner or of the coroner's physician or of the prosecuting attorney or of the chief of police in the city and county of Honolulu, an autopsy of the remains of the human body appearing to have come to death under any of the circumstances set forth in Section 841-3 is necessary in the interest of the public safety or welfare, he shall perform or cause to have performed such an autopsy. And it goes on from there. But basically, it's saying if there's a situation where it appears that somebody fits 841-3, then the coroner, for whom that applies, the one, it's under their jurisdiction and all of that, the coroner for whom that applies can do an autopsy. And this is what they're citing as their rationale for, or their legal justification for ordering an autopsy. But so the difference between that and 841-3 is in 841-14, it just has to appear that somebody has come to death within their jurisdiction under those circumstances. Now, if you have, so they are saying that it appeared that somebody came to death under our jurisdiction in these circumstances. But by saying that 841-3 itself was not in effect, what they're saying is, though it appeared that way, it really wasn't that way.
Oh, okay.
The difference between, and they're not claiming the authority to do it because somebody did die within their jurisdiction. In fact, they said 841-3 doesn't apply. It doesn't fit this situation. But they're using the justification that it appears that somebody died under these circumstances within our jurisdiction. Now, if they weren't claiming that it was within their jurisdiction, they couldn't even cite 841-14, because if it didn't appear that that this person died within their jurisdiction, then they couldn't. Then the conditions for 841-14 are not met. So when you look at what they've done with this, what they're saying is there was not an unattended death within our jurisdiction, but it looked like there was, so we did an autopsy.
Oh, wait a minute. Say that again. I mean, huh?
Yeah, it a lot of it doesn't seem to make sense. But they're saying by saying 841-3 that was not statutorily in effect. What they're saying is that there was no unattended death within their jurisdiction.
Oh my. Okay.
But they can they can still order an autopsy because there's this other statute that says if it appears that there's been an unattended death within your jurisdiction, then you can do an autopsy on the remains.
Okay.
And that's what they cite as their legal justification. So they're saying there wasn't a death within our jurisdiction, an unattended death within our jurisdiction, but it appeared that there was, so we're justified in
under the other statute.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, listeners to the program, if you're by a computer and not driving at this time or doing whatever, if you're by a computer, you go to HagmannHagmann.com, and on the right-hand side, under Friday on the Hagmann Hagmann Report, I did have now, since she's hooked up and talking, a link directly to Butter D. Zillion's blog. It's right on the right-hand side. Just click on that link. It'll take you directly to her website. There you can see the two posts that Ginger Grant, also known as Butter D. Zillion, Ginger Grant, of course, a reference to Gilligan's Island. Most people get that. They're not old enough. FAA responses. A response indicates that Fuddy crash and death were faked. Very interesting indeed. What about the arguments? I've been kind of watching this. What about the arguments that, well, wait a minute, this could have happened in another county, right? If no accident there, if the accident took place a half mile northwest of Kaluapapa, it was a different county altogether. In fact,
well, but
go ahead.
Yeah, Caldwell County, and that's the question that we had, and that's why Linda asked them point blank, did this death happen within your jurisdiction? And they said no, it was Maui County's jurisdiction. So you have a hard time getting around that when the people who would have been, who administer Caldwell County are saying, no, it's not us. We didn't. No, it's Maui County.
Man. Okay, so that kind of takes the wind out of the sails of that argument, basically. All right. So basically, then, what we have, based on the records you've collected, is what can we conclude? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but based on the records that you have, the statements that you obtained, what can we conclude from a county perspective or from a county admission about the death of Loretta Fuddy? What can we conclude reasonably from the documents you have?
Well, I think that we can conclude, for sure we can conclude that either the stories are totally bogus or she didn't die. Because as long as the stories that we were told were correct, 841-3 would be in effect for Maui County.
Right.
So either they're saying that that the stories we were told are a load of baloney, or they're saying that she wasn't dead. Because to say that 841-3 is not in effect is to say there was no unattended death within our jurisdiction.
Interesting. Okay. If I can interject this into the conversation at this moment, and I don't know if this is if you want to go here or not, but I'd like to kind of take the audience to this issue as well. Folks, I've talked about this. I've talked about Butter D. Zillion's research. Let's talk about if you don't mind, can we digress a bit and talk about the autopsy that supposedly took place at 7 o'clock in the morning, who was going to do it, and the oddities surrounding that?
Right, because that's another part that really feeds into why I suspected, even before the Maui County Police Department's response, why I suspected that something goofy was up with this. I asked for from the Maui County Police Department. I asked for the invoices and receipts for Fuddy's autopsy. And what I got back the sheet that Maui County has a contract with a lab in Maui that has a forensic pathologist. The statute requires that they have a forensic pathologist do autopsies when the autopsy is mandated by 841-3, and so they have a contract with this company, and this company submitted their billing for the entire month of December of 2013. And of course, Loretta Fuddy's autopsy and pronouncement of death were both listed on the sheet. But there was a place on that sheet. There were columns to submit for reimbursement different expenses, like preparation for court testimony, parking spaces, travel expenses, and so on. And there was nothing submitted for travel expenses for Dr. Harrell. And Dr. Harrell lives and works on the island of Maui. And the autopsy says that the autopsy report says that the autopsy for Loretta Fuddy was done at 7 a.m. on December 13th at the morgue at Molokai General Hospital. So it was on Molokai, and there were no travel expenses to get her from the island of Maui to the island of Molokai. Now, I'm not sure exactly how you conduct an autopsy from an island away. And then furthermore,
a Skype autopsy.
Yeah,
okay.
I guess so. And the autopsy being at 7 in the morning is also problematic because on Friday mornings the earliest plane, the earliest flight that she could have gotten on into Molokai would not have gotten her. I think it was supposed to arrive like at 7:05 or something like that at the airport, and then you still have the travel time to the morgue and all of that stuff. And so she couldn't have gotten there by 7 a.m. and she wouldn't have, if she had tried booking a flight, she would not have scheduled it for 7 in the morning.
Right.
So that doesn't make sense either. And then furthermore, in the autopsy report, she talks about, she says that the body was in a body bag and it had an identifying tag with it and all of that. And it said that the body was clothed, and it mentioned shirt, jacket, pants, underwear, and bra, but it didn't mention anything about socks or shoes or bracelets. And from the photo that we have of Loretta Fuddy that was taken with the Kalapapa administrator Mark Miller, it shows her with that kind of purplish shirt and the purplish flowery jacket and the black pants and all that. But on that photo, it doesn't show her shoes. You have to look at the Puentes video to see that she's got the shoes that she's got on, and the socks and her pants were elasticized toward the bottom. And from the Puentes video, there were people who said that the churning around in the water that you could see by where Fuddy's life jacket was, that was her legs thrashing around, and the circular thing was a bubble that formed there. And I have a colleague who has done extensive work in the water. I think he said that he had done training with the Boy Scouts for years and years, and he said probably one of the top people who has seen the way clothes act in water, because he's been around it so much. And he says there's no way that's her pants bubbling up like that. But the people were claiming, okay, that's her pants bubbling up there. So she had this tight elastic around her ankles, with the pants, and yet we're supposed to believe that her socks and her shoes fell off of her when she, after she had died, even though they didn't come off while she was thrashing wildly about, panicking in the water and such. So when I look at that, and the bracelets too, she had bracelets on, and when I look at that, what that tells me is that there wasn't a body. There wasn't a body there, because if Loretta Fuddy's body had been there, it would have had all of her clothes on it. It would have had the socks and shoes. It would have had the bracelets, and Dr. Harrell would have noted that in the autopsy. So the fact that they didn't know what she was supposed to be wearing at the time strongly suggests to me that there was no body that was there. And I'll just add this too. I finally got the CAD transcripts with the date stamps and all of that from the Maui County Police Department. And when Fuddy's death was pronounced, they opened up a case. They gave a case number for that investigation, which tells me that and it was not an outside assistance case. It was just a regular case. They knew, okay, she was declared dead. This is within our jurisdiction. We're required to investigate this. They opened up this case. Well, later on, they closed that case, that event and that case. And then about an hour later, they reopened it and switched it to an outside assistance case. So within that time, they decided, when they closed it, that was the decision that, hey, there was no death, no unattended death within our jurisdiction. We'll close this case. and then to open it again, well, we got to change it to an outside assistance case because we don't have an unattended death within our jurisdiction. But the thing that's interesting about that is we know when they opened the case. They opened the case right when Loretta Fuddy was pronounced dead, according to the EMT report. That's when they opened the case. When they closed it was 11 minutes after the deputy coroner was in the morgue and had located what was claimed to be the body of Loretta Fuddy. In other words,
that's not possible. Then I mean, okay. I mean that doesn't even make. Well, that's not possible. Correct.
Well, basically,
I mean,
the way that I see that, or the way that I understand that, is that as soon as Jamie Winfrey, the detective, as soon as she looked under the blanket at what was in the morgue posing as Loretta Fuddy, she knew there was not really a death within our jurisdiction.
Man, okay. All right. And for the audience listening, you mentioned CAD transcripts, CAD transcripts. What does CAD stand for? What does that stand for?
I'm not sure what the acronym actually stands for, but basically it's the dispatch dialogue that was going on, where the communication between the different units who were involved in the incident.
All right. Okay. Wow. Okay, so what we've got is the reported death of Loretta Fuddy, or at least what it appears to be, but yet it doesn't, because the documentation that you've obtained is either a wholesale lie, just a lie, or there's the death never happened. I mean, it didn't happen. It's certainly what we know right now. We can say with absolute certainty, whatever happened in the waters in the waters on that December day did not happen the way we've been told. That we can say with certainty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with absolute certainty. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Oh, go ahead and continue. I won't. I'm sure I interrupted you enough, but okay, man, this is absolutely incredible. It really is to hear this, and folks, you're hearing this really for the first time, I believe, on any major network. The findings of Butter D. Zillion, and of course, if you go to HagmannHagmann.com, click on the right hand side. You look on the right hand side under today's date. Definitely go to Butter D. Zillion's blog, bookmark that, because there is a lot of important information. And if you're smart too, you're going to download a lot of the information, keep it on your computer as well, so you've got a historical record of the research of Butter D. Zillion. Go ahead, Ginger Grant.
Part of the question that people might have as a result of this is, the stuff that how could the Maui County Police Department truly be saying that Loretta Fuddy was not dead when they've got an autopsy report, and when they've got a pronunciation of death? They've got all this stuff, and they're claiming that they're going right along with the story. So how could they do that? And what people probably don't realize is that Hawaii has a statute that allows their attorney general to do, and this is the language of it, to take any action that they believe that he believes necessary to protect a potential government witness in an investigation or a case where there could be public interest. And so the Attorney General can do anything. I mean, the statute literally says take any action necessary. There are no caveats. There are no limitations. Nothing. So the Attorney General has the ability. If he says, okay, when this happened, this alleged crash, happened just shortly after Doug Vogt had named Loretta Fuddy as a defendant in a criminal complaint. And it would be very possible for Attorney General David Louie to say, Loretta Fuddy is a potential government witness in a case that is being brought by Doug Vogt. And I have got to keep these crazy birthers or this crazy regime from doing away with her. And so I need to protect her. I need to protect her as a potential state witness. And with the justification of the statute, David Louie could go to the Maui County Police Department and say, "You write up an autopsy." And you write up
and by the way, that autopsy report was essentially so heavily redacted it could have been. I mean, it was meaningless. Correct?
Yeah, pretty much. And the autopsy report itself also, the preliminary, and this is something that Linda Jordan has also talked about, the preliminary, at the end of, I think it was like 10:30 in the morning or something like that, when Detective Winfrey, and this would have been after the autopsy was completed, although the supposed autopsy was completed, I did ask the Maui County Police Department, and their attorney responded when I asked for any records that would indicate the means by which Dr. Harrell communicated the pronouncement of death from Maui County, or conversely, anything that would prove that she was on Molokai at the time that the pronouncement was done. And the same thing for the autopsy. I asked for any records that would indicate that she was actually there on Molokai at the time that the autopsy was done. And I was told that no such records existed, that they had no records, and that to their knowledge there would not be anybody who had those records. So they're basically saying we have no record of her communicating in any way to do the pronouncement of death, and we have no records of her being on Molokai. Now, there was a case on Maui where a body had been found. This was I can't remember if it was like back in 2005 or something like that. But anyway, it was a case where there was an issue about whether how the autopsy was done. And basically they ended up consulting the recording of the autopsy to look at it in court. And so we know that the procedure in Maui is that when there's an autopsy, it's supposed to be recorded. And if they didn't have any record of her being there on Molokai, that means there is no recording of an autopsy. There are no, there are no surveillance cameras that caught her going into the morgue. There's nothing like that. They're saying that those things don't exist. And how did she do that autopsy? But now I forgot where I was going with that. What was I talking about?
Well, I think you were making the case that among others, the autopsy could not have been performed at the very least. Okay, well, we'll just say this to kind of go back and regroup. Go ahead.
Now I remembered what I was talking about too. In the middle of the morning, when this alleged autopsy was done, Detective Winfrey put in her report that the preliminary cause of death was drowning, pending the results of the toxicology tests. So, unless something showed up in the tox test, drowning was going to be the cause of death. But later that same day, she signed the inquisition saying that the cause of death was cardiac arrhythmia, and there was nothing. There were no, the lab work wasn't even sent in until a couple days later. So there was no lab work that came back. So why did that change? She in the autopsy report, Dr. Harrell allegedly said that she had spoken with the NTSB, and they had told her, that Loretta Fuddy was markedly afraid and all of this stuff. Testimony that contradicts what people like Holstein and Kawasaki and the others had said. What they had said was, well, everybody seemed to be doing just fine. We didn't think anybody was in trouble. We were very surprised to find out that she died because she was doing just fine. And so that testimony that the autopsy report said had been acquired from the NTSB was totally different than what the witness accounts had said to the media. And furthermore, Linda Jordan also had asked the NTSB about, did you tell anybody? Did you give anybody information from your investigation? Because the medical examiner is saying that you said this. Did you? And they said, no, we haven't talked to anybody about our investigation, about what we found or anything. And so the NTSB is denying that those witness comments were even shared with Dr. Harrell. And so, the autopsy itself is just, is very, very suspicious. Furthermore, what I understand. Hello?
Go ahead. I'm not going to interrupt you again. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. What I understand is that there is an enzyme test that can be done that could positively identify cardiac arrhythmia as the cause of death. Okay. None of that was submitted. In fact, all they did for the lab work was a routine drug screening, basically. So now we know she wasn't doing LSD.
So
they didn't test
she wasn't
anything else.
So the actual test that could, let's assume for a moment that the story is as it was, that she did die of a cardiac arrhythmia, which is what they initially said or had said that she died from. An enzyme test could have proved that, but no such test was done. Yet they jumped to the conclusion, or at least conclude, that the cause of death was from a cardiac arrhythmia. That's pretty much what you're saying, correct?
Yeah, and they didn't. They were trying to, with cardiac arrhythmia. The question, part of the question with that would have to do with medical history, and they. So I asked them, well, can you show me the records where you requested to see the medical records for Loretta Fuddy, because it was really critical to a diagnosis of cardiac arrhythmia. And they didn't request any medical records for her. And what Chief Faumu said about that was, they didn't need to request anything because she did the examination of the body. But at the end of the examination of the body, what they were saying was she drowned.
Okay. Which would indicate there would be. There would have to be water in the lungs for a drowning cause of death. Okay.
Yeah.
But
so why did they?
Go ahead.
If the examination of the body showed drowning, then how, without a medical history and the enzyme test and the things that actually would be, a forensic pathologist would know that you need to do, rather than hearsay from the NTSB that they didn't talk to, why it doesn't make sense.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me kind of interrupt here. We've got just about 5 minutes before the top of the hour. Let me ask this question, because I just received an email, and I'm not going to give out the name or anything like that in terms of who sent this, but I'll just say this. According to this emailer writes, a friend of mine was on that flight. Okay, stop right there. A friend of mine was on that same flight that crashed. Now, I'll just the next sentence is, he's the one that swam to shore for help. He said that she had passed prior to help or the Coast Guard arriving. Now, yes, this emailer, I don't know if it's he or she, adds the following. There were many questions about her passing and her position with the state of Hawaii, because she was the one that handled the birth certificate, in which many questioned her about Obama being born in Hawaii. And so, and the emailer concludes by saying, I suspect her death was not faked, but on purpose or deliberate, because she knew too much. Now, that came through our contact form, and again, I'm, without validating, without validating the authenticity of the emailer, let's just assume for a moment that's correct. Let's assume that person is correct. So we have this emailer who's saying a friend of mine was on that flight. He was the person that swam to the shore for help, and that Loretta Fuddy passed prior to help arriving, or prior to help with the Coast Guard arriving. Thoughts?
Well, from what the Maui County Police Department is saying, we know that what they're saying does not jive with that story.
Okay.
So
I can go along with that, based on what you've discovered. It doesn't, at least on paper or the documentation that you've been provided, does not support that particular story. Yes, that account.
Right, because if she had died in the water, whether it was by drowning or cardiac arrhythmia or somebody, shooting her up with some, no matter how she died, if her pulse had stopped while she was in the water, then the Maui County Police Department could not say that 841-3 was not statutorily in effect. So if that happened, then the Maui County Police Department is lying.
That's plain and simple. I mean, I understand that, folks. Yeah, and what would be their motive to lie? In that particular situation. Why would they lie if in fact her pulse stopped, or if in fact she was dead in the water? Why would they lie?
Yeah. Why would they say that they didn't need to do an investigation?
And that does bring me to that question. Well, you've got. I mean, it appears that more than one person here is lying based on the documentation you've amassed and the investigation. So absolutely. But what do you say to people? And I'll just extend this here right before the break. I'll extend this. What would you say to people that would say, well, wouldn't a faking of her death, wouldn't that have to involve every person on that plane or in the water at least? I'm not exactly sure about that, because they could have believed that. Although, when I look at the Puentes video, that's where it gets pretty dicey, because those people were all looking at stuff going on with Loretta Fuddy's life jacket. They all knew. They were all looking at Loretta Fuddy the entire time in that video. And, she was the focus of everything that was going on. And and there are just a couple of frames where you can see there's something in white, and there's something really funky going on with Loretta Fuddy's life jacket. I mean, where her life jacket was. And if that was somebody holding her head underwater, or if it was somebody taking her out of her life jacket so she could, I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's not clear enough to really tell. But I do know that all of the people in the water were watching it. And so I believe that they know a lot more than they're saying. Whether they knew, but see, my take on it is, if the Hawaii Attorney General
ordered that they do this faked death like this, and if they contacted these witnesses, the people who were on that plane, if they knew about that, they could very easily justify that in their mind and want to keep quiet about it and all of that stuff, because they had been told that Loretta Fuddy's life was in danger. And when I think about what this regime has done, and a lot of it people don't know yet, but what they've done and what they have made sure that they have the capability of doing, if David Louis did say that we need to put her into protective custody, he may have been absolutely right, because she may have been in danger of being offed by the Obama regime. And
folks, think about
those
that.
People,
hold
that thought. I'm going to ask you to hold that thought. We're up against the break.
Hagmann Hagmann Report on this December 12th, 2014. I do apologize for pressing buttons during the break on accident. I guess I'm not supposed to even be in the messing with the studio tonight. I'm just fumble fingers over here. But with that, we have Butter Zillion on with my father, and they are talking about Loretta Fuddy and the mysterious circumstances surrounding her death, her records of her death, her alleged death, as it's been reported, in many other ways also. Very interesting, guys. I'm going to turn it back over to you, Dad, and I'm just going to continue to listen. And thank you, Butter Zillion, for spending your time with us.
You're welcome.
Yes, indeed. Go ahead and have your wife prop you up with, like I said, duct tape and the sticks. They work fine in a chair, and until you're done, until you're dismissed. Folks, we were working them hard. But on a serious note, our special guest tonight is Butter Zillion, and of course we did not promote the show beyond saying that we would have a special guest on tonight for reasons which you are hearing and experiencing, aside from the wayward audio there, which was our fault. But she's having computer problems. It seems like there's always intrusions, always issues when she's on the trail, hot on the trail of evidence and documentation about this issue. And I could tell you things that would just really make you sit up and take notice, but I'll just spare that to the extent that she would want to get into that. I'll just let her decide. But the fact of the matter is, this is not a play issue. This is a very important issue, and it speaks to the importance of the documentation that exists with respect to the man that occupies the most powerful seat of our government and perhaps in the world, and that's Barack Hussein Obama, or Barry Soetoro, perhaps more legally correct. But with that, ma'am, Butter Zillion, I'm going to kick it back to you. I kind of cut you off in mid-thought there. I don't know if you recall where we left off, but regardless, go ahead and pick up wherever you want to take us.
Well, I think we were talking about reasons that the witnesses, that the people who were on the plane, reasons that they would stay quiet even if they had knowledge about it. And when I look at the people who are on there, they seem like they're good people. I don't believe that those people would watch Loretta Fuddy be killed right in front of them. But I do believe that they would take part in staging her death, in making it appear, doing a dramatization of her supposedly dying, if they believed that was what would be necessary in order to protect her. I believe that the people of Hawaii are a close-knit people, and they look out for their own, and I think they're good people, and I think that if there was one of their own, and by all appearances, it seems like Loretta Fuddy was dearly loved, and I think if they thought that she needed them to do this, that they would do it. And the same thing with the Maui County, with the police department and all that. They I was so angry. I was so angry when I got the responses because nothing was making sense. There was 841-3 wasn't in effect, and yet it had to be in order for or had to appear to be in effect in order for 841-14 to work, for them to use as a justification for the autopsy, and nothing was lining up, and I was angry because I was convinced that they were lying to me. And then I really thought through what they were saying and realizing, if she didn't die, this is the way they would have to respond. And then the thought came out of, well, if they're responding truthfully now, to have it to indicate that there was not an unattended death within their jurisdiction, then why do they have these false documents in their files? Why do they have a pronouncement of death that they admit that they don't? There's no way that Harl could have communicated that, but they still have it in their file, and
right.
They have an autopsy report, and they've admitted, we have no proof that she was even there. She didn't record it. We don't have any photos of her on security tape. We have no way, no records that indicate that she was there, and yet they've got that autopsy report in there. But when you look at that statute that allows the Hawaii Attorney General to take whatever actions he thinks necessary, and when you look at it in terms of if he goes to law enforcement and says we need to put Loretta Fuddy in protective custody, and we need you to put in these fake documents, what are they supposed to do?
Okay. I get that. I understand where you're headed with that. What about, and I'm not sure if this is the right time to pick this up, and folks, this is a pretty extensive, very extensive investigation done by Butter Dezillion. Again, please, folks, go on the right-hand side of our page, HagmannHagmann.com, click on the link to Butter Dezillion's blog. It's right above the image there of Fuddy in the water. Yes, there's an image there of Fuddy in the water, copied from and reduced in size from Butter Dezillion's blog. Would this be a good time to get into the records for the crash that were destroyed within a month of the crash, that should have been retained for a number of years?
This would be a good time to get into that. As I had mentioned, I had requested records from the FAA. And I need to again thank your listeners, because it was the funding that you provided that allowed me to make the requests for these records. And so all the stuff that's coming out now, that's what you invested in. So I hope you're happy with the returns that you're getting from this. The FAA records that I requested, just all kinds of stuff, and they came back saying, well, this is what they said. The search revealed no ATO records responsive to particular items of my request. There are no ATO provisions for recording the frequencies listed in items 12 and 13. In addition, and this is the important part, in addition, this accident was classified as a no-services accident, meaning no FAA facility had contact with the aircraft. No transcripts were created, and any radar data responsive to Item 9 or additional audio re-recordings that may have existed have been destroyed in accordance with FAA order such and such. And it gives the citations there.
What does this mean? Go ahead.
Okay,
I'm just really riled about this. Sorry.
Well, to understand what they had to do, you have to look at the documents and see how they have to do it. And so, when I looked at the citation that they gave, I looked it up online, and this is what it basically. I'll just paraphrase for the moment. Basically, they are required to, if there's any chance that there was an air control facility that was involved, that had any interaction, that had any knowledge of an accident or incident, then they were supposed to start collecting data for a formal accident file. And here, now I'll read what it says. It says, initiate a formal accident file or package for all investigations, including military investigations, When air traffic facilities may be or are involved in the accident, the determination may be made to downgrade the file after consultation with the service center or SPO and the litigation liaison office. So it's saying, basically it's saying from the outset, if there's any chance that there is that there is an air traffic control facility that has any knowledge about it or is involved in any way, go ahead and start the package, and you can always downgrade it and say you don't need to do it later if that's the case, if that turns out to be the case. So it's basically saying any chance that the FAA facilities are involved, go ahead and collect it, and you just, if you find out later on that you don't need it, you can always just stop. So then it says, it has two sections, A and B after that, that goes in with determining whether you continue with it or not. And it says, continue the formal accident file packages for the following, all of which include military aircraft. And it's got 4 different things. The first one is if it's an air carrier, air taxi, and commuter accident. Okay. So if it's an air carrier, which Makani Kai was, they're an air carrier. So if there was an air carrier accident, so they're supposed to start collecting all this stuff, and then they start processing. Well, do we really need to do this or don't we? So the first question is, first thing is, was it an air carrier accident? If it was, keep going because you have to do the formal accident file. But then B says, for all other accidents, where it isn't, where you don't have to continue the formal accident file. Okay, for all other accidents, the determination of whether a formal accident file package is necessary or required must be based on the level of air traffic service, if any, which was being provided to the aircraft. And later on it says, in the case where no air traffic service was being provided to the aircraft, but air traffic subsequently became aware of the accident via notification by police or similar organizations, no formal or informal file package is required, and all forms and documentation associated with the notification process must be retained. So it's saying you automatically assume that there's a possibility that FAA facilities know something about this and are involved or whatever. So you automatically you start collecting all this stuff. Then you have to look and see, okay, if it's an air carrier accident, keep going because you have to
That's right.
investigate that. If it's not that, then you got to look and see, well, how many services do we provide? Do we really know anything about it? If no services were provided, they wouldn't have any records anyway. So what would be the point of trying to collect them? And so basically it's saying, if there aren't any records, if the facilities didn't do anything, had no contact with them or anything like that, well, you don't need to do the formal accident file. Just stop with it. You don't need to do it anymore. And what the FAA is saying is that they determined that this was a no-services accident. In other words, they started collecting the stuff like they were supposed to do, and then they went through this thing and they said, okay, was it an air carrier accident? No. So then we go to B. For all other accidents, okay, we've got to determine whether we need to do this or not. But they can only reach that point of B if they've already looked at A and none of those apply. So when they did that, by saying that it was a no-services accident, they're saying it is not an air carrier accident. They're saying there was not an air carrier accident. So you look at that and you say, okay, what do they consider to be an accident? How do they define an accident? Okay, so you look on here, and this is their definition of an aircraft accident. An occurrence associated with the operation of an aircraft which takes place between the time any person boards the aircraft with the intention of flight and until such time as all such persons have disembarked. So it's got to be between the time when the first person got on intending to fly and the time that they were all off of the plane, and in which any person suffers death or serious injury, or in which the aircraft receives substantial damage. Okay, and it, all aspects of the exceptions to substantial damage, are to be considered before making a final substantial damage determination that would classify the occurrence as an accident. Okay, so basically, there has to be something that happens during the time between when the first person gets on that plane for a ride and when the last one gets off. Something had to happen there, and it has to result in somebody experiencing either death or serious injury. Now, fatal injury is any injury which results in death within 30 days of the accident. So if the person dies within 30 days.
I'm just. I got to tell you, I'm just so. I don't want to say I'll use the word excited about this, because this tells a lot. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off, but man, these records were destroyed very quickly. Go ahead.
Yeah, they were. And the only way that they could do that was by saying that it was a no services accident. So they had to deny that there was an aircraft accident. And in order for there to not be an aircraft accident, they couldn't. If anybody died within 30 days, it was automatically an aircraft accident. If anybody had serious injury, this is what serious injury is. Any injury which, 1, requires hospitalization for more than 48 hours, commencing within 7 days from the date an injury was received, or 2, results in a fracture of any bone except simple fractures of fingers, toes, or nose, or 3, causes severe hemorrhages or nerve, muscle, or tendon damage, or 4, involves any internal organ, like the heart, or 5, involves second or third degree burns or any burns affecting more than 5% of the body surface. Okay, so if anybody died within 30 days of the event that happened while people were on, before everybody had gotten off the plane, if anybody dies within 30 days of that, or if anybody has any damage to an internal organ, it's automatically an accident. Okay, so by saying that this was not an aircraft accident, they are saying that nobody died within 30 days.
When did they destroy the records? How soon after the accident, roughly? Was it within the 30 days?
They destroyed the records within 30 days of, I guess I should say that's it's a little bit iffy there, because I requested the records within the 30 days. And if there was a request, they were supposed to retain those records until the request was all the way done.
Right.
But they initially told me that the request that I made was going to cost a lot more than it actually ended up costing. And so it appears to me that they destroyed the records between the time when I first asked for them and the time when they finally gave them to me. But it was
or gave you the notice that the records have been destroyed, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
But the 30 days, that is, if somebody is injured in an airplane, in an aircraft crash, for instance, but they hang on, and maybe they're in critical condition or whatever, and they hang on for 15 days or something like that, it's still considered a fatal accident. It's still considered an airline accident.
Correct.
Because that person died as a result of that crash within the 30 days that way. And Loretta Fuddy supposedly died, within half an hour or so of the
while still in the water, awaiting rescue.
Still in the water. And the event that happened, the event that happened was supposedly this engine failure and crash landing, and this forced water landing. So if the story was correct as we've been told it, then this engine failure resulted in the water landing, which so scared her that she died of a heart attack. Right away. Okay, by all means, that would be called an accident. And
one would think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they said that the records were destroyed because it was a no services accident, which means that they could only get to that point by already ruling out that it was not any of the things in A, including an air carrier accident.
Man, this is so bizarre. I mean, really, you've got records being destroyed. You've got agencies saying, well, it's it doesn't apply to this section of the law because, well, it just doesn't apply to it, which would suggest that no death occurred. And then you've got multiple discrepancies everywhere with the returns of information you're getting, none of it making sense. And then you've got this destruction of records. If I could stop you there for a second, because we're getting a couple of questions via email, and before we get too far any further here, I want to just make sure that these are addressed. Some good questions here, and folks, you can go to hagmannhagmann.com and use the Contact Us form to submit your question very quickly to Butter D. Zillion here. But one of the questions is this, something you were talking about before we get too far away from this. If you, and this is from Donna B., thank you very much. She asks, when was that statute passed, if you know, that allows the Attorney General to free rein to act as his discretion, with respect to like a WITSEC program kind of thing? When was that law about that passed? Do you have any recollection?
Let's see if I've got that on my blog.
And by the way, while you're looking for that, Donna B. just writes, please thank her, you, for your diligence and courage. And I echo that sentiment because, boy, diligence doesn't even begin to describe it from what I've seen, and courage, you betcha.
Okay, I'm looking on here. It says all of the dates that are on here precede 2013. It says the first date on here is 1982. The next one is 1985 and 2011. So it's been it was in effect
for quite some time then.
Yeah.
The 2011, which just happens to correspond with Obama's the release of the alleged certificate of live birth. You mentioned that date there. Was a law changed, made more friendly to perhaps a situation like this, or hasn't that?
Looking at that, it does make me wonder. It does make me wonder about that. I'm not very good at doing law research and stuff, so I don't know how you, how you find out what the changes were and when they were made and all of that stuff. But that would be an interesting thing to research there, because 2011, that's a very interesting timing,
to say the least. Yeah. Okay, I did write that down here in my notes, show notes here. I do want to check that out. I can look into that as well. Thank you, Donna B., for that. Just continuing with a couple of more questions here before we move on. Teresa B., requesting or making mention of the autopsy and histopathology report. If a full autopsy was performed, tissue samples would be taken from Fuddy. There would be tissue samples in glass slides of her individual organs, samples for the pathologist to view under the microscope. The pathology report should accompany the autopsy. Was there a pathology report?
There was no pathology report. No.
Okay.
No report on what any slides, or I'm not even sure if there were any slides that were taken. I know that there were not any slides that were sent to the lab in Pennsylvania. Now, whether they had an in-house lab that did that, I don't know.
Okay. For a high-profile death like this, it's been my experience, and now this has been a number of years, but it's been my experience working with autopsies that they usually send those out, especially if it's going to be scrutinized. They might keep an in-house samples, but they would also send them out as well, send others out as well. Kind of a belt and suspenders approach to the entire thing. Just as an FYI. Interesting. Okay, so that answers that one. And the last one here from Christina. Did they leave? We had talked about her clothes, both in the water and then at the notation of the autopsy, or when the autopsy was to be performed. This question from Christina: did they leave her wet clothes on her until the 13th? Now, I mean, I know the answer to that, but go ahead and
that's the claim that they have. They claim that they just put her clothes and all into a body bag, put a tag on it, and put her in the refrigerator.
Right. Okay. Generally speaking, I think the emailer is asking whether she was fully dressed, in the wet clothes that they excreted from the water and then put in the bag and put in the drawer. It's been my experience, and I'm not sure what the documents state. The clothes are bagged. The personal possessions are bagged, depending on the items. Some individually, some together, but they're kept together and not kept necessarily on the body, but in close proximity to the body and cataloged accordingly. It doesn't mean that she was stored wet in the drawer, in clothes and whatever. But nonetheless, the clothes were. I think, Christina, what you're asking, were the clothes and personal belongings itemized, and they were, and found lacking in, or at least found lacking in shoes and socks, based on that autopsy report or that inventory of public or personal property. So hopefully that answers her question. Okay. Wow. All right.
And
folks,
there is a little here on this the autopsy report. There is a place where it says Block 1 is left ventricle, Block 2 left ventricle and lungs, Block 3 intraventricular septum cerebral cortex. So I don't know if that's, in talking about the blocks, I don't know if that's talking about slides that they took or they claimed to have taken or not. But all that they sent to the lab was blood.
Okay. All right. And we don't, when you say sent to the lab was blood, presumably it was from a dead Loretta Fuddy as opposed to an alive Loretta Fuddy, based on the narrative, but who knows at this point. We're like I've said before about your research, based on what you found, we don't know if we have a body or a person. We don't know if we've got a person that's sucking air or had sucked the water to the point of death. We don't know what we've got, basically. Very interesting. Wow. Go ahead and continue with. There's so many oddities and twists and turns to this. I don't want to take away from the important things. The FAA response indicates the Fuddy crash and death were faked. You've got so much information, by the way, folks, on her blog. Go to HagmannHagmann.com. Click on the link directly to her blog, Butter D Zillion. But take us where you want to go now, because this is incredible.
The other thing, I just kind of continuing with the FAA thing. Okay, they're saying that it was not an airline accident, and in order to say that, there can't have been anybody who was on board that plane who died within 30 days as a result of what happened with the plane. So that's one thing. But also it would be called an accident if there was substantial damages to the aircraft. Okay, to classify it as a no services accident, the aircraft had to not. It couldn't be an accident, so it could not have received substantial damages during the event. So when you look at that, okay, substantial damage. This is a definition of substantial damage. Damage or failure which adversely affects the structural strength, performance, or flight characteristics of the aircraft, and which would normally require major repair or replacement of the affected component. Engine failure or okay, so just looking at that right there, just so far right there. If you've got a single engine aircraft that loses its engine, I would say that adversely affects the flight characteristics of the aircraft, and it would normally require major repair or replacement of the engine.
Yeah, I would say that fits that description. Okay. Now, when you say loses the engine, it didn't fall off mid-flight. It just kind of stopped working, correct?
The claim is that it was catastrophic engine failure. So the claim is that one of the vanes on the compressor broke off basically messed up the whole thing. There are other claims with that too, and anomalies, but I'm not going to go into those right now. But basically, they're claiming that the engine was destroyed, so when you look, you go on here and it says engine failure or damage limited to an engine if only one engine fails or is damaged, bent fairings or cowling, dented skin, small punctured holes in the skin or fabric, ground damage to rotor propeller blades, and damage to landing gear, wheels, tires, flaps, engine accessories, brakes, or wingtips are not considered substantial damage for the purpose of this order. Okay, so if you if one engine fails and it seems kind of obvious that it's talking about if it's a two engine aircraft.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So those are some things that don't count as substantial damages. But if you've got an engine that is destroyed, catastrophic engine failure, that would normally require major repair or replacement of the affected component, and it affects the ability, the flight characteristics of the aircraft. I don't know if you're going to have anything that would be a worse, event if you're in the air than losing your engine being destroyed. And so with this,
that's a no-brainer. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So in order for them to say that this was a no-service accident, they had to say that it was not an airline accident, which means that nobody died and the engine did not fail.
The report, I'll just compare it to this, Nellie. Recently, a plane hit a house, and the comments from in Maryland, and the scientist died. But it's interesting, the pilots that had made comments, for example, reports with the FAA, NTSB, any number of oversight agencies have to be made. I mean, if you're flying a plane and you land hard and you blow a tire, or you bend a landing gear, or without incident, I mean, everything happens, but there's really nothing significant. I mean, you still have to file a report. There still has to be. It's still classified as an accident. It's still classified as a. The classification is still there, and you've got to go through the reporting process. So, or if you land hard and crack a window or whatever. I mean, based on our aircraft rules,
it would probably be classified. It would probably be classified as an incident. Because there is a difference between what the FAA labels an accident and what they label an incident. And incidents do need to be reported as well as accidents. But investigations and accident files and all this stuff have to happen if it qualifies as an accident, and that is if there is serious injury or death or serious damage to the aircraft.
Okay.
All right. And they're saying that there wasn't any of that.
And it didn't even rise to the level of an incident, basically.
Incident, it probably an incident, it would rise to the level of an incident because the NTSB is investigating it, and they need to investigate if it's an incident and all that. But to rise to the level of an accident that requires a formal accident package and all of that, they're saying that it didn't rise to that level.
Man, okay. Despite the alleged death, despite the destruction of the plane, the mechanics, the engine of the plane, and despite Despite all that, okay. So basically, we've got we've got multiple lies at multiple levels by multiple people in multiple departments about one person, and okay, and again, you've got 9 people aboard. John from listening live in New South Wales, Australia. Good morning, or good after. Yeah, good morning, John. Wants to know if let me read through this real quick here. New South Wales, Australia, just kind of blew my mind there listening live. With respect to would like to know about your findings with respect to the camera, the witnesses with respect to the filming. Who filmed this and why? I know this is kind of going backwards into time here, but who filmed this and why? I see photographs, pictures, still images taken from video on your website. Who filmed this and why? And where's the original film? Is it part of the investigative package? So that's for John in New South Wales, Australia.
Okay, it was filmed by one of the passengers by the name of Ferdinand Puentes. He had 2 GoPro cameras on him. He had them running at the time that, I'm not sure what to say about the time when he started, but he had them. He had them, and he took the video of it. As to why he took the video of it, my suspicion, my hunch is that he took the video of it for 2 reasons. One of them being that they may have suspected that people would think that it was suspicious that Loretta Fuddy had been killed this way, and that they would need to try to dispel any doubts that anybody had by showing that this thing was real. And so that would have been one of the reasons. But in that video, there are extra people all over in the water. When you've looked at the whole thing, not just one frame or one sequence or whatever, but when you've looked at the whole thing, I can identify maybe 10 or 11 different people who are in the water besides the people who are supposed to be there, and I can describe the characteristics of their face and so on. And why did those people make it into that video? I'm not sure why, but I suspect that the video also was intended to document that they did not kill Loretta Fuddy, so that if there was an investigation and any of them, if Puentes was implicated or any of the other passengers, they could look at that unedited video and say, no, they didn't kill her. And so that's what I suspect. Now, as to whether that the video that we were allowed to see was edited. It's very clear that it was edited.
Was it edited before? I mean, was it edited before it was ever made public anywhere?
I believe so. I mean, in addition to they also they pixelated the video right after I had asked my ping list at Free Republic if they would save that file before it disappeared. ABC was notified that there was something coming up with that, and they pixelated the video. But even before that, when Puentes came out with the video, the sequence that you show, right when Puentes goes into the water, you look at the shots of the water that are there, and it shows the side of the aircraft underwater and all of this stuff. But it also shows 2 of the women, Rosa and Marilyn Briley. It shows them kicking their legs at the end of the wing, and that was before Puentes even got to the end of the wing, and he was the first one to get there. So that it goes from Puentes jumping into the water to quite some time later, because it shows these women at the end of the wing when they had never had a chance to get there. That's the kind of editing that you can look at, and you can tell that it's been edited because the sequence is out of order, so it's been edited. That way. But as to whether the unedited video has been used in any of the investigations, the only investigation that there is really is the NTSB investigation, and they don't investigate cause of death. They investigate whether there were proper life jackets on the airplane and whether they properly advised them before taking off, what to do if we crash. That's the kind of stuff that the NTSB investigates. And so they would not be interested in a video, Puentes' video. The people who should be interested in Puentes' video to find out was there any foul play going on there should have been the Maui County Police Department, but they say it's not in their jurisdiction because there wasn't any unattended death within their jurisdiction. So there is nobody has investigated this death.
All right. So, and there you have it, folks. I mean, this is perhaps, I believe this is perhaps one of the most important investigations, really, with respect to, well, it has implications all over the place. And we've got more questions coming in than we could possibly ask, but I'll just ask a couple here very quickly. One, referencing the life jacket that Loretta Fuddy had on. There were rumors, and this J.K., thank you so much, from Indianapolis, wanting to know, was she wearing a life jacket, and if so, were there anomalies with respect to the life jacket? Because I think the last program perhaps we talked about, was there a life jacket issue with Loretta Fuddy?
Yeah, according to the FAA records that we've got, they were talking about. They said that the rescue workers had taken off the life jacket that she had on and had given it to the FAA, and the FAA said that it was an infant life jacket. And I did some investigating on that, and basically, depending on your body mass index, if you are an obese person, you're going to float whether you've got a life jacket on or not. And so basically, even an infant life jacket should have been adequate to. Oh
wow! I didn't know that. I thought like somebody like me, I'd drop like a stone. Okay.
Nope.
But if you're
nope.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
and that's curious, and that is probably why Ferdinand Puentes had problems staying afloat, even though he had two life jackets on. Or if there was going to be an issue there, it would be because his body mass index, he's very lean, and so
right.
he would need more buoyancy in his life jacket than someone who was less lean.
And muscles weightier than more dense than fat anyway. I get you. Okay. We've got about 10 minutes left of the program. In this next 10 minutes, rather than continue with the questions, unless you say otherwise, what haven't we covered that needs to be covered based on your investigation? We'll go for the first, let you go, and then save a couple of minutes for anything that the listeners can do to assist you in your investigation, whether it be research or whatever, or information that can be passed along to you. So for the first part, what haven't we covered that we really should cover, and then we'll go from there.
Oh man, my mind is spinning, so it's hard for me to think what we might have. It might almost be easier for me to think of stuff if I do have questions.
Okay, not a problem. We're no shortage of those. Let's see here. I'll just make a statement here based on Margot writes. I may have missed this, but I think the accident could have been staged to make us think she died. She's probably living in under a different name with a lot of money. Thoughts on this? And of course, you and I spoke about her affiliation with the organization Subud, and her name. I can't pronounce it right at the moment here. What are your thoughts on this? Delia. Thank you, Deliana. Is this? I recall early on there were some issues with respect to financial enrichment, and debt reduction. I think this is what Doug Vogt was working on too. Her income tax returns.
Yeah, he was working on that, and I fortunately I've been able to have contacts with with people who have had interesting lives. I'll just say it that way. Some of them are former Navy SEALs, and they've given me incredible insights to a lot of stuff. One of the people that I spoke with was someone who has been involved in staging deaths, and what he tells me is that the CIA, when they have operatives who are in danger of compromising the mission, they do extractions, and a lot of times it will involve staging a death. And he gave insights as to how they can make it appear that they've got photos of a dead body, and how, just fascinating, really, really fascinating information that he gave. But the main thing is that if there is a CIA operative who is endangering a mission, they get them out of there and they take them someplace where they really want to be. South America. I've heard different theories about where she is right now, but the people who have been involved in those kinds of things kind of strongly suspect that she's probably living really well someplace nice and warm right now.
Living large.
Yeah. She may have had facial reconstruction, probably a different name and all that kind of thing. But the connection with Subud, the CIA connections that there are with Subud and Loretta Fuddy's high position within that, combined with what she was doing there at the Hawaii Department of Health, they kind of needed her to be alive if possible, because she is the one who would know the odds and ends, things that could incriminate them. I've been trying for a long time to try to just gather all my evidence together and present it to somebody who can just run with it and be done with it. But I know that I probably will never be able to do that, because even if I plopped it in their laps, they wouldn't know where to look for this or this or this, or they wouldn't know the connections because they haven't done all that processing. Well, Loretta Fuddy was there when all of this stuff was going on at the Hawaii Department of Health. She knows who knows what happened with Ani's birth certificate, and she knows who did the forgery of Sunahar's death certificate, and she knows all of this stuff. They need that knowledge available so that if somebody starts barking at, when they look on my computer and they see I'm barking up this tree, they need to know who they need to deal with. And so she's better off for them if she's alive because of the knowledge that she has. And as long as they can pass it off as though she's dead, so she can never be called up to testify, nobody can find her, except the ones who need to get information from her. It's a win-win for them, and I do believe that's what is the case right now.
It sounds very plausible. I've got about 6 people who emailed me roughly the same question. Your thoughts on the cold case policy, Sheriff Arpaio, that investigation, if you want to comment. And I know that's something that you may or may not want to comment on that. Your thoughts on that. And that's kind of a compilation of 6 different people emailing me the same question, roughly.
The cold case posse has incredibly, and Sheriff Arpaio have incredibly important information, very, very important information. And I do believe that as soon as the situation is ripe for them to bring it forward, they will. And I think the best that we can do really is to try to make the situation ripe for them to bring it forward, and that is to get our Congress members realizing that the lawlessness of this regime cannot go like this. Whether people think it's an unpopular thing to do or not, we have got to address the lawlessness and take it seriously. And if the media will not be on board with it, then the Congress members need to call their own press conferences and bring it forward and just bypass the media or whatever. That's what we need to be saying to our members of Congress, to pave the way for this incredibly important information to come out.
Okay, and with that, in the couple of remaining moments we have, what can we do what can the listeners do? What can we do to best help you? I mean, hopefully we advance the investigation. And many people stepped up and offset the cost of the documents that cost. It was quite a bit of money. But what can we do to perhaps help you in terms of research, investigation? I mean, is there? And I know you're working on things that we deliberately stayed away from for good reason. But is there anything that you could, use help on?
Well, I guess the big thing is prayers. Prayers are always coveted. I really believe that that divine intervention is our only hope of getting anything done. So prayers that the plots and intentions of the destroyer would be set to naught. Prayers for safety for everybody who's involved. Prayers that that God would stir our leaders to do what is needed to preserve the freedoms that we have here in this nation. So divine intervention, I think, is probably the biggest thing. And beyond that, the problem that all of us have, including the cold case posse and Arpaio and all of that, the problem that one of the biggest problems that we face is that we have a media that lies and that ridicules people who tell the truth. And the only way to get around that is word of mouth, and people really bringing forward the evidence. And so, if people can talk about the evidence and get it out there in spite of the media, which will probably ridicule it or ignore it or both.
But we've got to press on despite that ridiculing. So well said. I mean, and I like the way too you categorize, or you said prayer first, and then of course we got to keep the pressure on politically. Well beyond that, the media and people appeal to their sense of decency, justice, and of course integrity, what little of it they might have. But nonetheless, we've got to play our positions, play our parts to go forward on this. We're at the end of the program. God bless you. Thank you so much for your time. And folks, this is a woman who's got. You think you don't have enough time? This woman here has got. I don't know how she does it. I just want to say thank you so much, and you'll be in our prayers and our thoughts. And I will talk with you here very, very shortly as well. God bless you. Thank you for.
You bet. Thank you, and God bless all of you too.
Thanks. Folks, at Butter D Zillion, it's linked off of HagmannHagmann.com. Please visit her site, and I'm going to leave the link up there for here for a little bit. Until Monday, God bless, stay safe,